All right, Nick, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders here for a minute. There's a lot of rumors swirling around the Raiders sphere talking about who the next quarterback of this team is, and a Raider legend has come out and stated who he doesn't want it to be. And we're going to get into that story here in just a moment. But Raiders fans, it's championship week. The final four teams are left in the playoffs, and the question is simple: who do you want to win the Super Bowl rather? Do you want it to be the 49ers, the Eagles, the Bengals, or the Chiefs? There's four options on the table, and we're dying to know who you want to go all the way. So let us know in the comments below. But Nick, who is talking about the Raiders and the quarterback position?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest rumor and the biggest name being tied to the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason for multiple reasons that we've already covered is obviously Tom Brady, who by all accounts is moving on from Tampa. There's some rumors that he could be potentially targeting Vegas, and there are a lot of rumors, some well-funded reports that Vegas is targeting Brady. But like you said, one Raiders legend has come out against that move, and that Raiders legend is none other than Tim Brown, a really great receiver and kick returner back in the day. So talking on CBS Sports Radio, here's what Tim Brown had to say about Brady. Brown said, quote, "I don't think Tom Brady should be in the plans at all. I think he's starting to show that he's 45 or 46 years old. When you look at the quarterbacks in the league today, you have very few who are pocket quarterbacks. Joe Burrow is probably the closest thing you get, but God knows when it's time to run, he can get out of the pocket and make it happen. Tom Brady is never going to do that. I just don't believe in this league. And oh, yeah, Tom has won all these Super Bowls, but I just think this league is moving to a point where you have to have a quarterback that's able to move around and get some things done with his feet every once in a while." All right, Maya. So obviously, this is Tim Brown voicing his opinion, and he's got some validity to it, right? He's an all-time Raider, great all-time NFL great. He's great in college too, for that matter. But I think he brings on a very interesting point because there's obviously a lot of good reasons to bring Brady to Vegas. He's obviously an upgrade over Derek Carr, in my opinion. He can distribute the football, he can manage the egos, he knows McDaniels. But there is some validity here to what he's saying because if you bring in Brady, because of his age, because of his mobility, he's only a 1 year, 2 year solution. And you're looking at an AFC right now that's absolutely stacked, whether it's Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, frankly, your own division, right? You got Herbert's going to be around forever. I already talked about Mahomes. Russell Wilson could maybe figure it out with whoever the next coach is going to be. So maybe the mindset for the Raiders, trying to go flip it around here a little bit, should be focusing on a long-term quarterback solution here as opposed to a short-term stopgap that Brady obviously would be. Give me your thoughts on Tim Brown's comments here, Mize, and what you think the Raiders really should do in this situation.
Yeah, I think Tim Brown's comments are interesting. I think you make a really even a more interesting point here, Nick. Of course, but I think you look at this division, and a short term fix isn't really gonna help you that much. And we made a video earlier a few weeks ago talking about why Brady should come to the Raiders, but we can even flip. It's nice to flip sometimes and talk about the opposite, and play devil's advocate here for a minute. And when you have Mahomes, when you have Herbert in this division, a short term answer, those guys are going to be here forever. They're going to be around for the long haul. And, a short term fix isn't really going to do you too much. Maybe you get lucky, make the ideal situation for Brady and make a playoff push. Okay. That's like best case scenario. But as Brown said, he is declining. And Brady's time in Tampa this past season was by far his worst season. And he went below 500 first time ever in his career. 25 touchdowns, the lowest that he has thrown since being on Tampa Bay. The last 2 years, he threw 43 and 40 touchdowns, Nick. He is dwindling, and it showed last year. Last year was kind of a wake-up call in all things. He did have a lot going on, so we'll give him that. But, it just really, really kind of showed. He's the father time comment by Tim Brown, showing that he's 45, 46 years old. It kind of reared its head a little bit last season. And I don't think that the short-term answer is necessarily the best answer for the Raiders here. It's the most intriguing. It's very interesting, but not the best.
Well, especially Tim Brown would know because he obviously played for the Raiders when they had Rich Gannon, who was an elderly quarterback at the time, taking them to the Super Bowl where they lost to the Bucks. And after that, the Raiders promptly fell off a cliff. Rich Gannon's career, I think, due to injuries and just age, his career, I think, ended 2 years later. The Raiders, I don't think they've won a playoff game since. I think it's been 20 seasons. You have to go back to that 2002 Super Bowl run. Feel free to correct me on that, anyone in the comments, if I've got that wrong, but I believe that's right. But the point here, Mize, is that Tim Brown would know about quarterbacks coming in late in the game and how bad that looks on the other side. right? We've seen this with other teams. We saw this with the Colts. Peyton Manning goes off a hill, just completely collapses. Luckily, they get Andrew Luck, but most teams don't have that happen. So we saw this with the Broncos, right? Peyton Manning falls off a cliff. They've been really, really bad ever since. He was bad at the end of the Denver Broncos era, right? It just becomes a situation you can't dig yourself out of. And that's exactly what Tim Brown is worried here. You bring in Brady, and in that division and at his age, you may not even win the division. It may not even be an upgrade. Who knows, depending how Father Time continues to progress towards Brady. And then you're stuck with the other side of it. And I think that is the real question the Raiders have to ask, especially when you're dealing with a quarterback-rich draft, especially when there's some veterans lurking around behind the scenes where if you're looking for a stopgap, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo makes more sense, right? A younger guy who can last maybe 2 or 3 years, who won't bring as much baggage, won't cost you as much as well. So I think what Tim Brown here is saying, he brings up a great point, is that there are other options for the Raiders, and that bringing in Brady is basically, look, we're all in 2023, and after that, we don't care if we blow up and go to zero. The Raiders aren't looking for that. I think the Raiders are looking for more stability. I think they're looking for more long-term, steady, consistent performance. That's why they brought in Adams, locked him up to a long-term deal. That's why they gave Derek Carr like the 1-year flyer deal to see if he could be their consistent guy. So I think Tim Brown is really onto something here. And I think the Raiders, if they're smart, they may take this under consideration before they make a move for a guy like Tom Brady.